Welcome to Mark D. Maker. My name's Mark Taylor. And today, just like the title says, we'll be making some bird feet. Now, these are store-bought bird feet. They're made of pewter. They are bendable. You can grab them and move their toes and talons around. You can see these in the shipping process got kind of pushed in a little bit, but you can bend them back relatively easily without any tools. And I'm going to show you when you're getting feet. This is for the tufted titmouse that I carved for this guy, and these feet will go in, and that's great if you're competing for or doing an art project or competing in the novice of any wood carving competition. But as you rise into a more advanced placement in your competition, you're going to want to make the feet. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So we're going to start off with, I'm going to link below 2 different videos that have a wonderful explanation on how to make your own feet for bird carving. The way I always start mine is with welder's filler rod. One of these, the smallest one, is 1/16 of an inch in diameter. It's a steel with a copper coating, both of them. And welders use it to fill in gaps as they're welding. The thicker one is 3/32. I found between these two, I pretty much, it covers the gamut of the birds that I carve. Now, I use this rod as the main support rod running from the bird as its leg down and into the wood, all one piece. So I would make both of those, and then the toes I would make separately and assemble it all with epoxy putty. The first video I'm going to show you, they bend the wire like so, and then solder it on the main shaft here, here, and here, and then they clip it in the center here and the center here. This wire gets bent down to go into the habitat. This becomes the back toe. These are the front 3 toes. This goes up into the bird's body. Then it's covered in 2-part epoxy. With epoxies, the way they are today, they're so strong, I find it a little redundant to have to do heat work with a solder gun and solder, and then also cover it with epoxy. So what I do is I use a single rod, as big as I can, depending on the size of the bird, run that wire from inside the bird's body down into the habitat, and then I build on top of that with 2-part epoxy and end up using the epoxy to join the toes to this main rod. For something little like this, I simply use toothpicks and a little tiny bit of epoxy. You could, for something this small, you could even use it's a acrylic paste that you can buy at paint supplies for adding depth to a painting, an acrylic painting. And you could simply use that and it would give it a little bit of depth. Don't need a whole lot for something small like this little puffin. So for those of you that have watched me carve the tufted titmouse, I got the pattern and instructions from Rosalind Leach Daisy's book, Songbird Carving. Excellent book, highly recommend it. You can still get this on Amazon. It's been out for quite a while. In here, it actually shows step by step using wire and making your own feet. Here she's actually soldering. Back in the day when this book was made, they didn't have the two-part epoxies like they have now. Magic Sculpt is a dream to work with. Any kind of the ribbon epoxies, they harden in 5 minutes. They're stiff, they're hard to work with. You use two-part of Magic Sculpt or two-part epoxy putty. It mixes together. You can mix it to where it doesn't dry. It takes 24 hours for it to dry, for it to set completely. So it gives you ample time to shape, form. As it slowly gets stiffer and stiffer, you can take it to the next step. You can start putting the scales on. It's a dream to work with. Magic Sculpt is what I use and absolutely love it. But if you wanted to kind of do it like this, you could do it like that. You'll still end up covering it in epoxy to get the scales and everything to size, but an excellent book. And these feet were handmade, beautiful. I also have a book that I've found some time ago, and it is a nice little book that shows the wire, forming the wire foot. This is a water bird, and he's using two-part epoxy to cover the wire frame and going in to mold the scales. Very reptilian looking. And this foot comes out to be absolutely gorgeous. There's the webbing, because it's a water bird, the webbing between the toes. Look at that, gorgeous. There's the gentleman that was doing the work. There's carving it out of wood. This book gives several different examples on carving feet. And there are many ways to do it. Here's carving talons out of wood. I've actually done that. Carve talons out of wood and then place them, put them together using epoxies. That was a downy woodpecker he was doing there. But you can see how absolutely gorgeous. Nice little book to have. So just taking a break from the feet for a second, and I do this from time to time. I throw in little tips to help a carver along the way. And this is one of those things that's got really nothing to do with carving, but a wood carver can find a lot of really cool things here, valuable information. Van Dykes, it's a taxidermy catalog. This was Shoot, I don't know how many years ago. I ordered this catalog from Van Dykes. But when you start looking through this, they have resin casts of animals, all kinds of animals. Now, it starts off with deer because that's probably the most popular, but this book has the bulk form of the shape of the animal, and of course, they just glue the skin onto these shapes, these blanks, more or less. And what's interesting is they'll have all kinds of animals. I mean, even waterfowl in here. And the casts, look at that, you can get a moose. The casts are so much cheaper than you can get from a wood carving catalog or store. Let's get back here a little bit. Look, there's bears. Full life-size bears without skin or fur. This book carries habitats in it, which can be very useful and helpful. It's wildcats. Just all kinds of animals. Every animal you can imagine. Rams. I even saw a hippo in here. A cow. Just all kinds of creatures. I'm sure that they use them for like at the Smithsonian for displays like this. So there's all kinds of forms. There's a monkey. So if you're carving something life size and want to get the shape close to whatever you want, these are actually very affordable. Now we're getting the snouts, noses, very realistic looking. Beaver teeth. Whole mouths with teeth. Eyes. Now these are very high-end quality taxidermy eyes. And they're, as you go through them, you can see all the different sizes and colors. Whole eyeballs. Wow. Plaques, mounting hardware. So this is just something to see. It's a resource. If you carve fish, there's actually templates in here with color patterns like you would airbrush through to get the proper color, stripes, spots on your fish. Very useful if you're a carver of fish. Look at these turkey heads. Painted $56, unpainted $36. If you're carving a turkey and you don't have one hanging around, or you're not a hunter, there you go. We get into waterfowl. These waterfowl, $18 a piece for cast heads. These are 18. Looks like they come with eyes too. These range from $7 to $18 for game birds. There's a full ostrich. Well, that'd be cool. Look, these are $6.95 a piece for these resin cast ducks, all kinds of ducks. You can't beat that price. Snakes. Now, these simply need paint, and they would look like snakes. But they're made to glue the skin onto. So there's some useful things in here. There's all kinds of resin, epoxies. Of course, there's the taxidermy chemicals themselves for tanning the skin and such. But you'll see a lot of epoxies in here, two-part epoxy. Here's epoxies. You'll see a lot of, they use a lot of epoxies in doing taxidermies. Leather, sewing, and then all the tools. And there are a lot of tools that they use for their craft. So anyway, I just wanted to show you all that. Very interesting. Van Dyke. It's worth, oh, and there's the company. Some of you guys know that company. They're very well established. Check it out. Okay, we're going to dive back in time a little bit to when I made these. And these are all handmade feet. This was simply two-part epoxy, and these initially were toothpicks. Cat knocked it off shelf, they broke off, and so I came back and used bamboo skewers. Bamboo is stringy and tends to be stronger than toothpicks. Toothpicks can get cross grain or not necessarily grain going sideways, but their grain can go across the toothpick, making it fairly weak. But bamboo, with the stringy fibers running vertical on that, they're wonderful choices for making legs if you didn't want to use wire. Now this guy is unfinished, and I kind of kept him around as an example in teaching. Here we have a hole going up into the body, and this piece of wire, this is the same as the thicker of this filler rod used for welding, which, by the way, you can get at Harbor Freight or sometimes even big box stores in the welding section. But the thicker rod, 3/32. And so this rod comes up, and you see it doesn't go that far up into the bird, and it comes down almost all the way through this piece of wood that I carved here. And the toes are all epoxy. Still, like I say, not 100% complete with this, so the paint job still lacks luster. But you can see that when I made this, I just took the two-part epoxy, rolled it into like little talons, and just draped it over top of the wood here and let that cure fully, and then came back and added to it, and then let that set until I finally, wrapped it around here and brought these out. And the two-part epoxy you can carve. Now, use a X-Acto blade or a number 11 blade like this. Don't use your good carving knife, because this epoxy can get rock hard, but it's still carvable if you use small cuts, small slivers. I like to get, before the epoxy sets 100 complete, it's firm, still pliable. It's kind of like cutting, if any of you have done body work, it's like cutting Bondo before it fully cures. So it's carvable, controllable. You don't want to take too much, though, because it's hard to put back on. You can't. carve it a little bit to the larger size, and then sand it down once it cures fully. So at least you can get an idea of kind of how that works. Now this guy, I made years and years ago. And the feet here, the claws are actually metal, and they are sharp. They will scratch or cut you. And then wood putty coming over the talons on this foot. But the feet themselves are epoxy, and you can see the wires coming out from the bottom. Now these are thinner wires, but they're twisted together to make them more rigid and stiff. And when you have a piece this big, it is nice to be able to, when you're transporting, to take it off and to pack the bird separately so it doesn't get damaged, because packing this whole thing with the bird on it is tricky, difficult. Now I will be very soon working on the eyes, because I've learned a bit since I've made this one. And every time I look at it, it drives me crazy. The eyes aren't placed proper. They should be different. Let's just put it that way. So I need to redo this guy just to bring me peace of mind. And I'll do that from time to time. I'll find an old piece, and instead of going, oh yeah, that was I did that way in the beginning, they'll drive me crazy, and I'll have to redo them. I hope this video is helpful to you. If there's anything you would like to see me talk about or discuss, please put it in the comments below. Please like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.